All right. Just make sure the audio is good. So I'm going to make this video to just share some layout tips that I've learned through my classes and from just various research experience I have. This is specifically made for my 435 students who are doing layouts of their DACs for the final project. And it's just going to be some tips and tricks that I think are helpful. So here I have my DAC that I'm going to kind of use as an example. It's just a 3-bit R2R multi-streamer DAC. Nothing special about this. It's just put together for demonstration purposes. So first thing I obviously need to do is I need to create a layout. So let me do that. And then instead of just generating all from source, I'm going to generate just some of the devices. So I'm going to grab all of my resistors here and put those in. You can see them up there. And then I'm going to grab all of my switch transistors and put those in. And then I'm going to grab all these digital inverter transistors. I'm just going to throw those in the corner over there. All right. So here's the basic devices. So the first thing I want to go over is about transistors a little bit. So I'll use these guys down here as an example. So these are the, if you look at my layout here, let me enable dimming, or my schematic, sorry. These are the transistors for these inverters. So the first thing I want to show you is that if you have two transistors and they have a shared, so let's use these two as an example. These both have a source connected to ground. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this one and I'm going to rotate it, flip horizontal. And if you have these two connections that are the same, you can actually just drag these transistors together and they'll snap together. And now they share a source. And this can be useful for compacting layouts, especially of NAND and NOR gates. So that's one little tip. You can just kind of drag your transistors together like that. I think there's some other ways too, but you can experiment with that. The second thing is, let's look at this guy. So none of these transistors normally have body ties for them. So if I want to create a body connection, let's say for this PMOS, one way I can do it is by creating a via. So if I hit O to create vias, I can do M1 to NWell to add a couple rows. And I can make this via. And then this connects M1 to the NWell. And the NWell is denoted by this like white layer here. And you can see, so right now I have two NWells. And so if I was going to do this, I would need to put them together. So I could create like a rectangle. Oops, I had this set up from earlier. And boom, now these are in one NWell together with a body connection. So that'd be one way you could do this. And you could, handy thing about this is if you had, let's say, all three of these PMOSs, you could put one NWell connection and then boom. Now they're all of these PMOSs are in one NWell with one body connection. So you can do stuff like this. Putting devices, PMOS devices in a single NWell is a nice way to pack them closer together. Because normally it requires quite a bit of spacing between these NWells or between separate NWells. So if you just make it one, you can make your layouts a little bit more compact. Another way you can add, okay, so then if you want to do that for NMOS, the NMOS body is in the substrate, so you do this M1 sub. And there we go. Now I have the body connection made. And this needs to be, I think the DRC rules are like you need a body connection within at least like 30 micrometers to the channel of your transistor, something like that. Another way I can do it is I can click on my device, hit Q, and then go to parameter and I can create body ties here. So if I want to make it on the left, I can do detached, and apply. Now you see there's this like detached body tie. I can also do like the I think it's supposed to be integrated. I don't know. Anyways, I hit apply and it connects it directly. Just if I do this, I have to make sure that this is where if you want to connect the source and the body together, I have to make sure they're not at different potentials. So like if I did it on the right side, now I'd have two different nets connected together that aren't supposed to be connected. So if I want to do it on the right, it'd have to be detached. There you have that. So that's a little bit about just body ties and body connections. Okay, next, so let me jot down timing here. 6:20, we'll say. Okay, so I don't have to watch this video again to get the timestamps. Okay. Next I want to talk about the modgen tool. So here I have a bunch of resistors. And if I look at my schematic, you can see that, so my series, or these are my 2R resistors, these are my Rs, R, 2R, R, 2R. So basically, each of these two are creating a composite resistor. And then all of these resistors are the same, except if I go into here, I have two multipliers. And so the two multipliers just creates two resistors in parallel. And I guess I forgot to check this in simulation, but I think it should work in simulation where it gives me a total resistance of 11 kilo ohms, but it's actually, or 11.2, but it's actually gonna be like half this if you have the multiplier of 2. So it just doesn't use a multiplier into this calculation. But I'm using this so I can do common centroid. And so rather than have to go through and like carefully align all of these, I can go up to my toolbar here, go to assistance, and then constraint manager. And that'll open up this little box over here. And if I select all of this and click this button here, it will create a module, or modgen. It's called like module generator tool. And if I click into this, you can see all the resistors in here. And I'm going to expand this a little bit and scroll or go down. There's also this. So this modgen tool is very handy. It has a lot of features. I'm just going to go through the basic ones today, but you can dig into it more if you want. But here you can see it shows all the devices. So AA are the two segments of resistor A. And I can click these other little things here to see more about them. So here I see R3.1, R3.2. So those are the two multipliers for that resistor, R6, R7, R8. I think I'm going to put it in this view for now, because I think this will be most useful. And I can quickly change this array if I want. So I want to put these just all in one row, and then I'm going to leave it like that for now, so we can look at floor planning a bit. So, or one column, sorry. So I'm going to put this into one column. It auto snaps it to 20 rows because I have 20 devices. I'll hit apply. That just snaps it into one nice column like that. And then I can click this little thing with a check mark up here. And now this is one module. So if I move it around, it just moves like this. If I want to edit it, I can double click into it. And now I can edit the individual things. I hit this check to go back. Okay. Now I want to separate out the. Okay, so this is an NMOS, and this is an NMOS, and this is an NMOS for my switches. Okay, so these are my three NMOS switches, which I guess I probably should have broken these up for common centroid, but I didn't really think about it. Let's imagine I did. Let's say these PMOS devices, so they each have 3 segments, 3 switches, 3 segments. Let's say I want to put these into a modgen. The first thing I'm going to do is create the body ties. And for this, I'm just going to select them all, hit Q. I'm going to select all of them, and I'm just going to make a detached body tie on each side, just for symmetry. You don't have to do this. This is just what I'm going to do. So, okay. So now they all have body ties. They're kind of stuck together. Now I'm going to select them. I'm going to hit this button on my constraint manager to create a module. So now you see I have two modules. One is the resistors, one is the PMOS devices. And I was messing around with this earlier, so I kind of know what I want to do, but I'm going to make this into like a 3x3 array like this. Okay, I hit apply and check it. Now I have another module. And then let's say these ones, I'll do the same thing with the, okay. Sorry, I'm trying to talk through a lot of points kind of together, but okay. So that's the basics of the modgen tool. And we'll talk about it a little bit more, how to do the detailed common centroid part, but I want to talk about floor planning before that. So floor planning is making an idea of how everything is going to go together in your layout. And this is something that I think a lot of students don't do, and that's okay, but it can be helpful. So whenever you start a layout, I would recommend doing a floor plan first. And the floor plan is basically like, just get an idea of how everything's going to kind of roughly fit together. And so one way to floor plan is to put all your devices in like I have here and kind of make a rough idea of how they fit together. Another way is to like calculate how much area you need and then like decide, say, how big different boxes are, and each box is like the different segments of your layout. So an example floor plan here is, let's just say, okay, I have my resistor array, I have my PMOS switches. So let's say I put these like here. And let's say I could probably put my NMOS switches like below it. Kind of like that. And these are a little spaced out right now. So let me move these in a little bit. Okay. And then lastly, I'm just going to delete this for now. I have all of these digital devices. Digital, am I missing them? Okay, no, they're back together. So let's say I can probably fit how small these are, all of these kind of up in this region. So something like this. Okay, and so I want everything to fit together roughly like that. And now, if I look at this, I had this nice layout that's a nice rectangle that will fit together with other things easily. And that could be kind of like my floor plan. Like, this is what I want my deck to look like. You can do other ways. If you have more cells, you might want to think about like, okay, this is how much this 3-bit structure is going to be. Let's say my other 3-bit structure could fit next to it, and then I might have like a decoder sitting over the top. If I have a rough idea of how big things are going to be, I could say like, okay, this is going to be my other 3 bits. This is going to be my decoder. I'll calculate the areas to make sure this will fit. And there we go. That's my floor plan. That's how I want to get it. So basically a floor plan is just making a plan of how everything fits. Kind of rough plan, and it can help you a lot to do something simple like this before you start to get an idea of how everything fits for nice layouts. Okay, that was probably more than I needed to talk about there. All right, so let's go back to the modgen tool, part 2. So let's say I want to make this resistor string common centroid. I can double click into it to go into my modgen editor. And I'm going to go down to this array assistant tool again. Right, last time I just changed the number of columns to put them all in one column. And you'll see here the way I have it listed, you see all the different resistor numbers. Okay. And there should be 2 R4s because there's like 2 R4 segments and yada, yada, yada. So let's say I want to do common centroid. I'll treat these as just one resistor with 4 segments. So let's say I want to put this one at the middle, R9. So I think my middle spots are 9 and 10, the rows here. So I can select R9 and just drag it, and R9 and drag it, and now those are placed. And then let's say I want to do these ones, so R8. And because I'm treating this as one resistor with 4 segments, I'll just put R8 on top of R9, like that. So 2 of the segments will be on this side. And then my other piece here is R7. So I'll put R7 like that. And so now my center is here. I have R9, and then R7 and R8 form a composite resistor, and now their centroid is also in the middle. And so now I can go into the next one and do something similar. So let's say R4. I'll place that next. So I think R7 and R8 were my last ones. And you can figure out how to put this together. Basically, you can just put this array together, just dragging them. So I'll do R5, go like that. R6, just drag it in. And then next I'll do this one. So R2 can go above 5, and then R3 will go below R6. And then now I'll just let's do R1 and then R0, and then R1 and then R0. Okay. So now if I go through this, I have R0, R0, R1, R1, R3 and R2 form a composite resistor. So 2 of the segments are on one side, 2 on the other. R6, R5 form a composite resistor. R4, I have the 2 segments here and here. R7 and R8 form a composite resistor, and then R9 is in the middle. And so now if I go through, this forms a nice common centroid, layout. And I can just hit apply, and it will change them all. And if I zoom in, I'll have them all reordered. And if I'm good at that, I can hit this check mark. And now I'm ready to start routing my resistors. So they're all in common centroid. I can just do the routing. Hopefully that made sense. It was a bit of a fast explanation. If I double click back into it, you can change the rows and the columns here and drag things around. You can use like I think you can paste stuff or like use a file. Yeah, save load CSV. So you can create like a CSV with your R8, R9, stuff like that in it, like in an Excel sheet, let's say. You can put it together, save that as a CSV, and then load it in, and it will like auto put together your pattern in here for you. So that can be handy sometimes if you have more devices. Let's call that good there. So let's say I want to do a common centroid for these PMOSs now. I can double click in, use my array assistant. And I did a little bit of thinking about this earlier. You can move things around. So M0, 0, 0. I'll do M3 here and here. And now I have one of the 3 segments in each vertical position and one in each horizontal position for all of them, which ends up with a nice common centroid right in the middle. So now that's put together, and I can hit apply, and it moves everything around. I hit this check mark. Yeah, I don't think we need much more explanation than that. If you have questions, you can let me know. But basically, this modgen tool just allows you to quickly put that together. And a reminder, to get this constraint editor, you go Assistance, Constraint Manager, and this will open this up. Okay, one other cool feature of this is you can add dummies. So a lot of times we'll add dummies at the end of our arrays to help with the processing, to make sure that the edge devices don't get changed differently. So just if you ever need to do this, you can click into your modgen, and then I can select the top device and go up here and go add dummy top. And I'll make both terminals connected to ground. I'll make it these all same as neighbor to make them the same, basically the same type of segment. I'll hit OK. And that adds one little dummy up top. And I can do a similar thing on the bottom. Add dummy bottom. Make it all same as neighbor. I'll connect it to my ground terminal. Okay. And now I have a dummy device on the top and on the bottom. And now, like when I'm doing processing steps, if say the etching is different on the edges of the array, just these dummy devices will be affected and everything else will stay matched nicely. But do note these dummy devices won't show up in your schematic. So what you can do is hit this little button here, back in and take all active dummy instances. I can just click this. And it will add, if I go back to my schematic, it'll add the dummies up here. So then your LBS will still work. Okay, so that's the basics of the modgen tool. Next thing I want to show is how to use the align tool. So oftentimes, like if I look at all these NMOSs right now, let's say I want these to be lined up nicely with these PMOSs, and I want them to be lined up with each other. It's a real pain in the rear to try to move everything around. So what I can do is I can use the align tool by hitting A, or by going edit, then quick align. And now if I hover over things, it'll show these little yellow dots and marks and stuff. And let's say I want to align the edge of this poly to the edge of, this poly. I can just click this, and then click this, snap it to be aligned. Same thing here. I can go and I can click here. I can click here, and it'll snap it over to be aligned. And you'll see the dots in the line. So if I click two lines, say this one and this line, it'll align that to the level. But if I select like a point and a point, then it will make those 2 points come together. So another example of that is if I do A and I go like point, point, it'll move it so it'll move the device you originally selected so that the point overlaps the other one. And if it's kind of annoying, the whole points and edges thing, if you just want to align, like say edges, you can hit F3 and you can select edges, hide, and now you can only select edges. You can't select points. Hit F3 again. You can also do only points. So now you can see I can only select points. One other useful thing is you can use this spacing. So I don't think min spacing actually really works correctly, but you can do like user spacing. Let's say I want this PMOS to be offset from this PMOS by 3 micrometers. I can type 3, hide, I can click this edge and this edge, and it'll space them by 3. Like this edge and this edge, you can see it'll have a spacing of 3. So that's pretty useful. I'm going to do no spacing and do edges. And originally I said I wanted to align all of these. So I can go boom, boom, boom. And now those are all lined up. But you can see these are all misaligned. If I quickly want to align these all to one point, I can click on each of them, holding Shift. So let me enable dimming so you can see what I'm doing better. So I click on one, hold Shift and click on the other to select it as well. Hold Shift and click on this one, hit A. I'll select an edge, and then I'll double click this edge. And when I double click, it'll align all selected things to the same level. Now those are all aligned nicely. So the align tool I think is super handy. I already talked about how combine MOSFETs, like their sources and drains. Talked about the well. Okay, sorry, I can't read my own handwriting. Another tip is when you're making routes. It's like normally it just has this like 90-degree routing. Right now I'm using poly. Could also show like metal 1. Same thing. If I hit P to make a path, and then hit, whoops, P, F3. So F3 basically brings up the options for every single thing you can do. Down here, I can do diagonal instead of orthogonal. Then that allows me to do these diagonal 45-degree routes, which can be kind of handy for fitting stuff in and making it look nice. So that's one thing you can do. I don't really know what the other options are, but you can mess around with this. Okay. Okay. Last thing I want to show is how to use the autoroute tool. So I am okay if you use autoroute for digital routing, like routing all of your digital control signals. But I don't want you to use it for analog routing because it'll do really funky things. It'll make your analog routing have bad parasitics. So when you're doing analog routing, you should carefully do it by hand, and you should use like wide traces. So don't use minimum width because it'll have a lot of resistance, but use maybe like 0.5 or something, make it bigger. Instead of using one via at each point, you can use like multiple vias using these tools. That helps reduce the resistance. You want to make sure you don't overlap things too much, like have M2 running right over M1 for a long ways, because that'll create a bunch of capacitance. So you want to do your analog routes by hand, and then you have to do all your power routes by hand, because autoroute does not work for those. So all my VDD and ground would have to be hand routed. But then once you've done all of that, I'm okay if you use autoroute to make the digital connections. And so the way to do this is first you should create a backup of your layout, because once you make the routes, it's kind of hard to get rid of them. So make a backup, and then you can go route, automatic routing, and you can go to options and you can change some of these options that are automatic. I'm just going to leave it default. So I'm going to go automatic routing, all nets. It might take a little bit, so I'm going pretty fast. You can see it makes all the connections for you. It's got all the routes in there. If your thing's pretty packed together, though, it will route things over each other sometimes, and it will violate DRC rules sometimes. So you kind of have to like carefully check through it. And when you run DRC and LVS, you might have to go back and fix things. But it can speed up the digital routing quite a bit. So yeah, I think that's all I have. I might make another video about pins and common LBS issues with pins, but I'm going to call it there. So hopefully this was helpful, and have a good one.